Hello again, fifth graders. I have had so much fun in reading with you. Do you remember what's happened? Let's review. Ben received his package from Tucson, but a change has happened and he's not real interested in the stuff from where he used to live. He is a part of the excursion on Mrs. Tibbetts' land with Tabitha, the real estate agent, and Mr. Lindsay to see if the land can be spared. It was a disappointment for Ben and Mrs. Tibbetts to find out there was only one way the land could be spared from development, and that was to sell the land to a trust company or the town that would prohibit the land being developed. Tabitha does not seem to be interested in that since it would not be as much money. Ben doesn't quite give up. He and his friends Jenny and Ryan do more exploring to help Ben with his project. Before Ben submits the assignment to his teacher, Mrs. Kuchar, he goes to Mrs. Turner's house and tells her about his report. His report has a picture of Mrs. Turner and her brother at the vernal pool when they were little. Do you remember what the note on the back of the picture said? That's right, it was about the overtoad. That's where we left off. We have had the climax of the story in chapter 17, and now we're beginning the descent to the end of the story. It appears there is no hope for preserving the land or saving the habitat for the spadefoot toads. Let's see what we will focus on today. We have been working throughout the book to identify the theme of the text. We have observed characters' responses to challenges to help us identify what the theme might be. We have also looked at specific details. We will identify specific details from the text today to identify a theme for the story. We will be successful when we finalize a theme for the story Night of the Spadefoot Toads. We will complete a chart of details from the text to come to this conclusion. Let's get started. Chapter 18. After school on Wednesday, Ben's heading into the kitchen for his snack when the phone rings. He grabs the receiver before his sister can get there. "No fair," she says. "You always get first." He holds his hand over the mouthpiece for a second. "So, life's not fair." We're going to pause for just a minute. I want you to think about this dialogue. Connect it to ideas from earlier in the novel. Was there another time when that statement, "life's not fair," was said? Is it in the same context? Does it mean the same? Let's go on. "I hate it when you say that," Agatha shouts. She dashes out the back door and slams it behind her. Ben turns back to the phone. Someone is chuckling. "Ben," a voice says. "Yes?" "It's Mrs. Tibbetts. Is your mother there? I'd like to speak to her." Ben hesitates. Okay. Oh no, guys. The last time Mrs. Tibbetts called to talk to Ben's mom, it was about the snakes getting out. Do you remember that? Do you think Ben thinks he might be in trouble again? Yeah, I think so too. But what would he be in trouble for? I know, right? I can't think of anything either. Oh my, let's find out what's happening. "It's nothing bad, Ben. I just need to talk with her for a minute." Ben hands the receiver to his mom, who says hi to Mrs. Tibbetts. He doesn't know what to make of it when, after a minute of listening, she starts laughing. "I see," she says, looking over at Ben. "All right." She hangs up and announces, "Mrs. Tibbetts is picking you up in about 15 minutes. "For what?" "She'll tell you." "But Mom!" "I'm sorry, you'll just have to wait." Ben tries to wheedle it out of her, but when he sees it's no use, he goes outside to wait. A long half-hour later, Mrs. Tibbetts' station wagon pulls into the driveway. She leans over and opens the door. "Hi," Ben says as he hops in. "Hello, Ben." Mrs. Tibbetts backs out of the driveway and heads down the street. Ben waits for her to say something, but she keeps her eyes on the road and her mouth shut. "Where are we going?" he finally asks. "To my house," she says. When they round the last corner, Ben sees Tabitha Turner standing beside her car in the driveway. Someone Ben hasn't seen before is next to her. "Hello, Ben," Mrs. Turner says as he and Mrs. Tibbets get out of the car. "Hi," he says. He looks from person to person, trying to get a sense of what this is all about. "I asked Gloria if she thought you'd like to come over. We've just been talking to Mr. Selby here. He's with the local land trust." Ben opens his mouth and closes it again. No one says anything for a minute. They're all looking at each other, trying to figure out who should speak first. "I've decided to sell most of the property to the land trust," Tabitha finally says. "I'm holding on to a 2-acre plot on the other side of the vernal pool where we may put up a few houses." Ben nods, still too stunned to speak. "The Spadefoots will be all right. I thought you should know." Ben looks at Mrs. Tibbets, then back at Mrs. Turner. "You changed your mind," Ben says. Mrs. Turner nods her head. "Yes, someone made me change my mind." Ben's face breaks into a huge grin. "That's great. That's really great," he says. "Thanks. Thank you so much." "You're welcome," Mrs. Turner says. "No, I mean really, thanks." So, what evidence from the text shows that Mrs. Turner changed her mind about selling the land? And why do you think Mrs. Turner is referring, who do you think Mrs. Turner is referring to when she says, "Someone made me change my mind"? Who was that? And why do you think that is who she was talking about? Do you have text evidence? Let's go on. "And I mean, you're really welcome." Mrs. Turner gets in her car, starts the motor, then rolls down the window. "One more thing, Ben. If you see the Overtoad, thank her for me." "Okay," says Ben. "Maybe someone should name the trail by the pool the Overtoad Trail," Mrs. Tibbets says. Mrs. Turner looks at her sister-in-law and manages a smile. "That's a good idea," she says. The land trust man shakes Mrs. Tibbets' hand and gets in the passenger side of Mrs. Turner's car. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets wave as the car pulls away. Without a word, like they speak the same language. Excuse me, I will repeat that. Without a word, like they speak the same silent language, Mrs. Tibbets and Ben walk around the garage and head toward the woods. Ben feels his feet connect with the ground like he's part of it, and it's part of him. As they enter the trees, a breeze pushes the branches back and forth, showing the silvery undersides of the leaves. They come closer and closer to the place where the vernal pool was and will be again. Suddenly, Mrs. Tibbets draws in a breath and stops. "Oh my gosh," she whispers, holding an arm out in front of Ben. "What is it?" he whispers. "Look, just look." She points to the path ahead. Ben looks where she's pointing, and the hair rises on his arms. I'm going to stop here for just a minute. What do you think Ben means when he says, what do you think it means when it says, Ben feels his feet connect with the ground like he's part of it? I agree. He feels like it is home, doesn't he? How is that a change from throughout the story? Let's go on. It's a rattlesnake crossing the path about 10 feet in front of them, sliding quietly over the dirt and leaves. Another one follows it. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets watch them until they disappear into the undergrowth. "I don't believe it," Mrs. Tibbets murmurs. "I just don't believe it." They both stand there for a moment, barely breathing. They're surrounded by the small sounds of the woods. Far off in the distance, they can hear a car motor. Finally, Mrs. Tibbets breaks the silence. "Well," she says, "I guess we're just going to have to be a little more careful around here from now on. It seems that we have some new neighbors." I hope they feel at home, Ben says. I hope you do too, Ben, Mrs. Tibbet says. I do, he says, and he does, right at home. So why do you think Mrs. Tibbets uses the term new neighbors? Yes, they saw the snakes surviving on the land and they appeared to be doing well. Those must be the new neighbors. But I'm wondering if the writer just might be giving clues with this regarding the theme. That's the end of our story. And so now let's look at some details to help us identify the theme of the story. I know we have come up with some ideas throughout the book, but now let's solidify our conclusion. For this activity, you will need to open ReadyGen so that you can have the entire text available. Let's compare now how Ben connects to his surroundings at the beginning and the end of the story. We will use details from the text to answer these questions. I will get you started, and then you will need to continue by making your theme statement based on the answers to the questions. First question. What inferences can you make about Ben's character? Well, one of them that I made was Ben feels a stronger connection. On page 217, he was beginning to connect. He even said that he was connecting with the land, which made me feel like he was thinking it felt like home, right? Second question, what are some topics of the story? On pages 183 and 184, Ben was showing that he cared about his friends. There were several times when that happened. Remember once when he was asked about Ryan and Frankie and his friends and if anyone was bothering him, and he thought, well, they were, but he didn't want to get them in trouble. He also was caring about Jenny and Ryan. Right. So there were several instances. What are some other topics of the story that we found out about? Next question. What themes can you infer based on the previous questions? So when I look at those answers, one theme we have noticed was based on how Ben really missed Arizona, his old home, at the beginning of the story. And he had trouble adjusting to his new home, but throughout the story, he began to adjust, like making friends and finding interest in the Spadefoot toads and the natural habitat in Massachusetts. So that makes me think maybe a theme could be that he's adjusting to a new place. He's learning to make friends. So now it's your turn. What is your theme statement? When you think of these answers and details from the book based on these questions, look at the very last dialogue with Mrs. Tibbets and Ben. What statement would you make for the theme of this novel? One statement that I might make is that feeling connected is part of what makes a place home. So maybe it does have something to do with feeling at home. I don't know. What theme would you come up with? So you need to write your statement in your journal, or you may create your own chart and answer the questions from details you find. They may be different from mine, but that's okay. You can do this. Fifth graders, I have enjoyed reading this novel with you. You have worked hard, and I hope you have enjoyed the story. I especially hope that you have enjoyed practicing and applying the reading skills that we've used. I hope you continue using them as you read in the future. Always enjoy the storyline, but also realize the writer may have an important message that he or she wants the reader to recognize. It's almost like a mystery. Can you find it? I'm sure you can. Keep up the good work. Tomorrow, you will be taking your end of selection assessment. You'll be reading a couple of selections and you'll answer questions based on the same skills that we've been practicing throughout this story. I know you can do it. Be bold, be strong, embrace the challenge. I hope you have enjoyed this time as much as I have. I can't wait to hear the wonderful things you do. You are awesome, and I hope you always remember you can do this.